Welcome to the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on the Hoosier.com. I am the coach Shannon Griffith, and I thank you for joining me here this evening as we wind down spring football as it's going a week from tonight. We will have the spring game that will be in Memorial Stadium with an 8 o'clock start time. Hope everyone can make it to Memorial Stadium next week, and the weather is cooperative as of right now, as we can see that the weather, while nice at times, it's still been very chilly as we've entered this month of April. I'm sure everybody had a chance to check in on the Masters today. Fun-filled day with that going on, and still with some guys on the course. But I know when you get to the Masters every year, you kind of feel that we're right there where the weather's going to break in our favor. Appreciate you joining us here tonight. First initial broadcast on our platform, the Hoosier.com's YouTube channel. We will be switching over there for good. So if you're catching me on the Hoosier Tailgate YouTube channel, we will start broadcasting under the primary banner of the Hoosier.com. So just check and make sure that you switch over, give them a subscribe and like, and hit that notification bell so you're notified when things are updated or shows coming on tonight. Remember tonight as well, if you have any questions as we progress through the show, by all means, feel free to ask them and put them in the chat. We'll try to answer them the best we can. And going to be joined here in a short minute by Kyler Staley from the Hoosier.com. We'll get to him here in a few moments, but some things that popped on the, I don't know what you say, the radar today, but Coach Signetti, after the practice presser today, 10th practice in the books, and he wasn't very happy with the effort today. Didn't feel like they had the juice, and he kind of let them know that they weren't living up to the standard that had been set. And like he said, it had been pretty good up until this practice, and just didn't feel like they had any juice, and they need to continue to understand that they've achieved nothing, and everything that they want to achieve is in front of them. But if they don't excel to reach the standard, they will fall short in all their goals and objectives for this season. So he kind of let that be known today in the presser, called out Omar Cooper a little bit, talked about the talent that he has, but inconsistencies has been his biggest issue, and he knows he can be the best, pretty darn good wide receiver, but he needs to have a more consistency in his practices to break some habits there. So, it's, Coach Signetti is going to tell it the way it is, black and white. And if it's something that he needs to address, he's going to address it, whether that's not only amongst the team, but in the press. So leave your egos at the door, I guess you could say, in some respects. But that was one thing that came about with the practice this morning, and leading up to their next scrimmage, which is Saturday. They'll have another scrimmage. They had a scrimmage last Saturday, and from all practical appearances, that went well, other than the typical penalties and blown assignments that you experience in those type of scenarios when you're putting the twos and mixing the personnel in and out. But, but they have one more chance here. And then, of course, the next Thursday night, we'll see a battle in Memorial Stadium, and we'll get the chance to see the Fernando Mendoza. We'll get the chance to get a first look at Pat Coogan as the offensive center. And then, of course, have a look at Alberto, see where he's at in all this equation as he's battling as well for a quarterback position. We'll also see kind of how they've adjusted their wide receiver room with the loss of Tyler Morris, the transfer from Michigan, lost for the season due to a knee injury. And unfortunately for him, he's not going to be able to go this season. Don't know the prognosis as it pertains to what may come of next year, but right now it's a no-go with that knee. I don't know if you guys have been to the Hoosier.com, but a ton of information there on the Hoosiers, from recruiting, football, basketball, also former players such as Curtis Rourke did not participate in the Colts Pro Day. He's getting close and getting cleared. So he's now in that position and kind of wait and see where he will potentially fall, if he gets drafted or not. He's got options back in Canada where he can go and probably make a pretty good living in the CFL. But right now it's kind of wait and see what happens in the NFL. And but he's getting to the point where that knee is healed up and he's getting a chance to work at some things here and there, but did not participate in the Colts pro day that they had here the other day. Of course, a write-up on Coach Cignetti's thoughts about today's practices there. Great job by all who are participating at the Hoosier.com. We've had Zach Browning on here before. He's very active as well with football. We're going to talk to Kyler here in a few minutes as well. But Alec Lacey's another gentleman that is kind of the ringleader, as you can say, for the Hoosier.com. But very, very good group of young men that have a passion for IU athletics and do a great job in coverage. And that's not even to mention being powered by On3.com, where you can find a bevy of information of your favorite sport. And I like it because they give you a pretty good rundown of recruiting, as well as, estimated NIL values and things of that magnitude, but a wealth of knowledge there. So get on over to Hoosier.com, get a subscription, $1 for the first month, then 50% off the rest of the first year. You can't beat it. Get over there today and get that done and be a part of the Hoosier.com, the new home for Hoosier football tailgate, as I will be fulfilling the role as the lead football analyst for the Hoosier.com, and pretty excited to join the group there as well. The NCAA and the House settlement has got a life of its own. We may talk a little bit about that with Kyler as well. It still has not been approved. There are some things that are needing to be adjusted per se from the judge's perspective. But right now, there has not been a final approval, the rubber stamp per se, on that settlement. And I know there's some questions about roster sizes and how that may impact some of the non-revenue sports. Right now, like in the sport of football, you can have 105 total roster spots for football. There's no what you call a preferred walk-on anymore, or a walk-on per se. It's purely football in terms of, getting money and things like that. So the 105 is pure roster spots. No such thing as a preferred walk-on now in some respects. And we're still waiting on some of the rules as it pertains to how that all will be handled. I know they're trying to establish a clearinghouse through Deloitte that will sign off on all NIL deals of $600 or more. And so we're talking about a lot of things coming into motion in a short period of time to get there with some of it. And not to be outdone, if you saw on 3, I think it came out today. It was an article talking about a bill that was introduced into the House of Representatives, where the NCAA would be replaced as the legislative body, with removing the NCAA It's called the Restore College Sports Act. It was filed by Michael Bumgarner from Washington. It would create the American College Sports Association, ACSA, would replace the NCAA, and it would be the overseer and regulator of college sports. They would have a commissioner appointed by the president with advice and consent from the Senate, and then the commissioner would serve 4-year terms. The bill calls for the NIL funds and revenue directly shared with the schools to be distributed equally among all student athletes as well, from that perspective, because right now that's not the case, as Title IX is really not involved as it pertains to these settlements per se. This bill would require that to be distributed openly and freely with all this. It also talks about, with this particular bill, to cap coaches' salaries of those figures. Coaches' maximum salary would have a cap of 10 times the full cost of attendance at such institution. So they would cap the coach's salary to it being the total cost or full attendance at said institution. So it's getting interesting from the standpoint is Greg Stanky, the SEC commissioner, has asked Congress to get involved in all of this. When you start asking that, that's when bad things happen with everything, as it pertains to college athletics and everything. But it would also require a redistributing the conferences into a more geographical footprint, and you could maybe do away with the Big Ten Conference, the SEC. I don't know, but this bill is pretty robust, and when something like this gets on the radar, and you get enough people supporting it, especially constituents and from different bodies of the country, all of a sudden it gets some life on it, and next thing you know, the NCAA is no longer relevant, and next thing you know, they're out there in the cold with everything. So it'll be interesting to see with everything that's coming down the pipes on all this. So stay right here with thehoosier.com to get all the information you need as it pertains to the NCAA and the versus the House settlement, and anything with this new bill that's introduced called the American College Sports Association, and some of the things that it's asking there as well. The other thing is, coming soon up on thehoosier.com, I'm redid my RPO analysis because the video didn't come out very well when I did that before. So I'm going to do a video just dedicated to that. That will be coming shortly up on thehoosier.com. Discussion on all of Indiana's RPO scheme, talking about how efficient it was this past season on a normal down call for the Hoosiers, and the high percentage that it got in not only completions but big plays, and then average yards, and something that I do see them continue to use, especially with Fernando Mendoza at the helm, and adding some wrinkles to that because he has the capabilities of pulling it down and running. But Surratt was very good in it a year ago. You got Coop back in the fold as well, and then Williams, that big tall body, running quick slant routes or 50-50 ball routes off an RPO game, could be a great weapon for Indiana, not just in the open field but down in the red zone. And so I did a little breakdown of that. You'll see that coming shortly as well. And hopefully we can get that up, and it'll be a better video for all involved with everything as it pertains to how the Hoosiers utilize the RPO and the formation aspect. And one thing that kind of stood out to me when going through that is Coach Shanahan's, kind of imaginative aspect of how he utilized the different players, the different sets, and how he got the ball in the hands of their top guys throughout the year. And it was one of those things that I thought they did a great job of this past year with everything that was involved with that type of setup. And I do think it's going to be a great option for them to continue under Mendoza and some of the athletes they already have. So it is a robust system that's very simple in concepts. It's very easy for the quarterback and to grasp a hold of. And once they do, they become very proficient in it, just like Curtis Rourke did. You hear Coach Signetti or even Coach Shanahan talking about the quarterbacks and getting their eyes right. That is, in some respects, in reference to RPO game, because they have to know who they are reading and who they've got responsibilities for in terms of how they're going to, the read and react off linebackers in man line of scrimmage. I'm sorry, there I was getting a note out to somebody. Hopefully Kyler will be joining us here shortly, and hopefully just in a few minutes, because we've been texting back and forth. So trying to get him back on here, but that's coming up. So be aware that'll be out here in the next couple days or so, but that won't be the only one that I will do. I will do some more and give it a breakdown on all that, and be able to take it and expand upon offense and defense as well, because there's plenty of things there that one can do with this different phases of the game for Indiana on both sides of the football, offense and defense, as it pertains to some of the things they had great success with. So I know one thing with all this is just a second here. I'm getting a link sent to my man because he said he lost it, or I didn't send it to him. So hopefully I can get this sent over to him here quickly, and we'll be on our way. I guess I didn't do my part in this bargain hunt as it pertains to getting the link out properly. Let's see here. Get a Kyler Staley. So hopefully we can get this out to him, and he'll be able to join us here shortly as we get some of his insights from some of the things that have been going on in his world of just basketball a little bit, and also talk about some of the things that he's encountered thus far with the new basketball staff as well, and how the NIL and all that impacts not just the sport of football, but also the sport of basketball as well. The other thing, as I just reminded you as well, spring game is a week from today, 8 p.m. in Memorial Stadium. I'll be there with my buddy Jim Coyle. We will probably do a post-game wrap of the spring game, similar to what we did last year right now. So next Thursday, there will be no show as it pertains to our standard Thursday night, but stay tuned because I may be doing a pre-game spring game and get all that type of stuff in line for next week. But remember, that's coming up. So let's see if I can get my man in here. And sometimes my computer system does not work right. And I got to go. There we go. There he is. Can you hear me, young man?
Hey, what's going on, Coach? Hey.
Yeah, we got you. One thing I always tell my people that are watching here live as we go on with this is there a echo to let me know, because then I can control some of that as well, and we'll see what all happens with it. But I hope you're doing well. Sorry I didn't get you that link. I thought I did, but I must not have got that. Let's hold on. I got some question here already. Let's see here. Is the spring game televised? From what I'm understanding, I'm assuming that it will be on the Big Ten network like they did last year. This has kind of been some of the stuff that we've heard throughout the year about spring games being televised, and Nebraska canceling their spring game, and others have because of it's televised, and then there's coaches watching it and then trying to get kids to jump ship, especially when they need somebody out of position badly, and losing players in that spring portal can be detrimental. But appreciate you joining me here on our quote unquote first broadcast on the mothership, thehoosier.com. And I know that you've been a big part of that over there. So give us a little bit of a rundown too, your background with thehoosier.com, as well as what you do there on the site, because there is so much stuff there. It's a very impressive, up-to-date info with everything. So go ahead and give us some of that.
Yeah, so obviously, at thehoosier.com, it is pretty overwhelming at times because there are so much different things that we have going on right now. But just a little background about me. I've been covering Indiana since, I think, 2021. Kind of got into this basketball media world around 2019, and just kind of grew and developed a lot of connections through that. And through these connections, I met with Alec Lasley. We were at a basketball camp, and he had mentioned something, how they needed somebody to help out covering the basketball team, Indiana. And me, growing up in Bedford, Indiana, was a big fan of IU growing up my whole life. So, only 20 minutes away from Bloomington. It was a dream come true, really. And I've just had a blast with it. Working with Alec, we actually over at Rivals at the time, and then Alec and I kind of ventured off for the past thing with HoosierIllustrated.com. Worked with Ant Wright, who's really big proponent of Big Ten, everything football, basketball, and he was great to work under for the past 2 years. You're working with On3, right? And we're excited working with Jim Coyle. The team put together guy Drew, who's with us the past 2 intern, brought him over, got to get to work with Zach, who I've come to. He's a really good student reporter the past few years, and Colin. I really like this team, and of course we've got you covering football, and for guys like me, that's very casual when it comes to covering the football landscape of it. Well, it's nice to have a guy of your expertise, covering football, and as well as Zach and Alec and all the rest of the guys. So it's a good group. We got our first $1 for your first month, and then the rest half off for the rest of your subscription year of your first year. So it's a good group. I'm excited to really build this thing and grow this thing, but we can't do without Hoosier Nation and everybody that wants to join and be a part of this community, because it's going to grow. It's going to grow really fast, and just us being a part of On3, it's truly special, and it's really a dream come true.
Yeah, Yeah, Brad, I know it was cutting out there for a second, and I think I got it fixed because sometimes these internet connections can be a little bit funky in that regard. But yeah, I appreciate your acknowledgement there of what is going on at the Hoosier.com and how it is been an important facet of covering Indiana sports, like yourself with the basketball. Zach Browning's been on a couple times. He does a great job chasing around baseball, and I do think he's doing some football here and there. So it is a whirlwind as it pertains to what you guys have to do on a daily basis to keep the fans informed about important things. So $1 for the first month on that subscription, and then 50% off for the first year. You can't beat it. And On3, what they have to offer in terms of subject matter is second to none as well, especially in the world of recruiting, being able to look up the NIL stuff and getting evaluations on kids on what they may be projected to make. I think I saw Fernando's NIL evaluation, and I think it was like 1.5 million. Now, I don't know how all that's going to translate into everything, but it's interesting to get some of that data. Arch Manning, who is going to take over, I believe, down there at Texas, when he came out of high school, not even playing a down. He wasn't even on the campus. His NIL value was over $3 million. And he hadn't taken a snap or done nothing. And just to think, that's just crazy. What some of these guys, NIL values are. Of course, it wasn't around in my day when I was playing at Ball State. So, hey, I would have been worth maybe $1 or $2 back in my day. So anyway, couple big things that came about today. I talked a little bit about Curtis Rourke and not being able to participate in the Colts Pro Day. And that's up on thehoosier.com, something that you actually wrote about. So why don't you kind of fill in what you've learned there with Curtis Rourke and potential time period that he's looking at, and maybe have a feel for what maybe he's looking from a draft perspective.
Yeah, he obviously it looks like he is cleared now. It was just recent. Probably, I think if based off of what I wrote, I think he had said maybe it was last week that he just now got cleared. So obviously taking it a little bit slow. Coming off ACL surgery is not something you want to mess with. Something you want to take your time with, and especially if you're a quarterback and a guy that obviously is pretty much mobile, like Curtis Rourke is. You just want to take your time with that. But obviously, for him to be able to go to the NFL Combine, for him to go to this local pro day, and I'm not entirely sure if he's went to another pro day or not during this time. But just for him to go there and get knowledge and just talking to people and networking, essentially, right? And just kind of putting his name out there, and following up with the media obligations and things like that. I think that's pretty big. But obviously he's cleared the throw now, so sooner than later he's going to get back out there, and he's going to be trying to show from a active and physical standpoint, what he can do on the field. Obviously, he's got some good film, from last year. He was really really good last year. And the fact is that he played on a torn ACL, mid-season, had that thumb injury as well. So it shows his toughness, and I think a lot of the NFL scouts are going to look at that, and not necessarily. Obviously, you do have to kind of worry coming off of an injury like that, and for him to be an older guy being in this draft, you do have to kind of worry about that from an NFL scout perspective. But I think when you look at the toughness and his willingness to go out there and play, when he's not fully healthy, I think that's pretty big. So, from a drafts perspective, me personally, I do see him getting drafted at some point. Now, obviously, he's not going to be one of the first quarterbacks taken, in my opinion. There's a lot of younger guys out there, a lot more guys that I guess you could say have a lot more potential. I guess you could say a lot more untapped upside. But I do expect him to be drafted. I think he's going to be a very serviceable quarterback in the NFL. From a backup standpoint, hopefully gets his opportunities here and there, depending on what teams he goes to and stuff. But I mean, you can't say enough good things about Curtis Rourke. He's a high class guy, a tough guy, a guy that plays through it, and he's got the talent as well. So it's good to see he's back in really, really high spirits. He's back, healthy now. And it's just going to be exciting to see where he lands NFL draft wise, and what he can do in his professional career.
Yeah, and he played on a bad ACL during the year, which limited his mobility. But the film that he's got to put out to the NFL scouts, not just from last year, but his years at OU, I do think he has an opportunity somewhere. And if not, he's got the CFL too, that may be an important thing for him to follow up with. Jason wants to know, how is our defense looking for this year? Well, Jason, good question. I was talking with Jim Coyle this morning about this exact thing. We were talking about basically the guys in the trenches on offensive line and defensive line, because when you flip over to defense, when you lose CJ West and Carpenter, two big guys that were very important facets of the defense, but getting Kamara to come back, they moved him to the stud linebacker position. That is a very mobile position because it's a guy that can be a stand-up player and be in pass coverage, or they can utilize him in different blitz schemes, or they can put his hands in the ground and get to a four-man front if they want to do that as well. So from that standpoint, I do think this defense is going to be a pretty darn good defense. You got Rucker back at the defensive line. Wheeler was brought in from Western Kentucky, I believe. He's a big dude that can move and's got some power. So up front, I do think they addressed some of the needs they had from that perspective. At linebacker, of course, Aiden Fisher back. You lose Walker, but I think they've got the guy there to step in, and they used two last year when Walker went down. So they've got plenty of guys there. We'll see how that spring game and see if we get any tips on who is that guy going to be. And then the secondary. You got Moore back there, who came back to Indiana, all Big Ten player. Boykin, who came in from North Carolina State, and Gandy and Pons at the corner. I think their secondary is going to be as good as it was a year ago, but probably better than what it was because of who they got, especially at the corners, because they can really do the things they like to do, play man coverage on the outside and use their skill set to different things to do with the box and getting guys free. I don't know if you've got any opinion on that, Kyler, as a defense, but I do think the defense as a whole right now, I do think they're going to be a pretty darn good unit again for Brian Haynes.
Yeah. I don't really see, a drop off necessarily and stuff. It's all about the scheme, right? And it's all about putting the right guys in the right system, right? And you can say that about any sport. Basketball's the same way. Football, especially, you got to have guys that do their job, and you got to get guys that fit in your system. And I think Signetti, Haynes, like those guys have the right guys in the system. They went out to the transfer portal, and the high school recruiting and all that, and they got the right guys. You mentioned Aiden Fisher's back, and that's huge. I mean, that's an all defensive Big Ten guy right there, and he has an opportunity this upcoming year to do something really special, and also just lead that defense. And I think it's a really good group. You mentioned the secondary. I do see them being a little bit better than they were last year, and that's saying a lot right there, because they were so good last year, and that defensive unit is really just the backbone of that team. And they set the tone in a lot of ways, and they were really fun to watch last year. They fly up and down the field, and they make spectacular plays. So I'm excited to watch them this year. Aiden Fisher, big fan of him, and I'm excited to see what he can do on a personal standpoint, and what he can kind of do and lead this defensive this unit next year.
Well, they were dynamite a year ago, believe like in the top 5 in rush defenses and things, and then tops in scoring defense. And they were every bit as good as advertised last year. And Coach Brian Haynes has got another year under his belt leading a unit, and he does a great job with his personnel in terms of utilization. Does things that they can do and stays away from things that he doesn't think they can handle. But overall, the unit they had a year ago, he got a lot of mileage out of that group. And I mean, they were hiding some guys at times, but who doesn't have to hide some guys? But I think they're going to be even better this year. John said last year, all but 4 redshirted freshmen. Redshirt, how many do you think redshirt this year? Well, that's an interesting question. With all the different rules coming up now, we talked about roster size limits of it being 105 and there's no walk-on, preferred walk-on status or not. There's 105 guys. All 105, from my understanding, will be getting some type of money. So that's number one. Number two, 14 of this incoming class are going to be on the field Thursday night, which will be a dynamite thing to see because you're going to get a good look at this class in terms of talent, because there will be some guys getting some decent reps, especially in the wide receiver group with Bond and let's see, who's the kid from Indianapolis? Devin, is it Chandler? I think it is. I can't remember. But, yeah, they're going to be some good talented guys that you're going to get a look at in the spring game. So, ideally, I think Sig would prefer to redshirt all of them if he could. But normally what happens is somebody flashes and puts themselves in a position to earn playing time. And whether it's on special teams, whether it's being a backup, you really don't have to make that decision until I think it's week 4 on who is or who isn't going to redshirt for the year. If he had his way with it, he'd probably redshirt the entire class. But so much changed in college football now with the portal and you name it. I don't know how that all is received from kids nowadays because they all want to play. If they tell you you're going to redshirt, some guys may look at that as a, time to move out of Dodge and, look to jump in the portal. So good question. I can't give you a great answer on it. I can give you some hypotheticals. Like I said, redshirt them all because they all need a year of college football just to observe and get themselves going with everything. Anything from your perspective there, Kyler, on the redshirt stuff?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you could redshirt them all, you would, but this is
Yeah.
a different day and age. And, you kind of hinted at it. These players, coming in, they want to play, right? And they want to get film out because let's be honest with you, they want to have as much film as possible if they do enter the portal. They want to have as many suitors out there that want to come after them, and they want to have a lot of film to back up what they can do. But you mentioned it, football is a different beast when it comes to freshmen coming in. Very rarely do you see true freshmen getting big opportunities, big playing times in college football. It takes them over at least a year to develop into their bodies and stuff. Whereas basketball, it's a little bit different. It's not as physical. It's not as a physical contact sport as what football is, right? And
Right.
when it comes to redshirting and stuff, obviously you want to pick and choose the right guys, but with the spring game, it's this is the time for people to really show out, right? And the players that you're not really thinking about, contributing on this Indiana team, there's going to be some flashes where they show some promise, and they're going to show promise not only to the fan base, but they're going to show promise to Coach Signetti, the coordinators, the whole coaching staff, and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we do need to find a role for this guy, if it is a true freshman. So it'll be curious to see how many they actually redshirt. Like that question said, they didn't redshirt very many last year. But we'll see about it and stuff. So it's a very interesting question. And it's just one that you just can't really pinpoint a exact answer right now.
Yeah, it's hard in today's game. Jason says, how are the quarterbacks and the new quarterback coach doing? Well, there's some questions at the presser today about that. On the flip side of the new quarterback coach, he brings the NFL background into the problem, not the problem, but the thing of it was he hasn't coached the position as the number one guy at that position, even in the NFL, for quite some time. So I know Coach Cignetti said early on he was kind of teaching him along the way, as well as the new quarterbacks in the system. But top tier guy, I think he'll be a great addition because of his background, and he played quarterback at Illinois, and so he knows the quarterback position. I can guarantee you that, and I think he will do a great job, even like Tino did. But I do think he's going to do a great job with the quarterback group that he has right now. As far as the quarterbacks go, right now I would say they're starting to see some progress, and I can relate to what Coach Cignetti was saying as being a quarterback coach when I was at Ball State. When you get guys that are new to the system, they're thinking a lot. And it slows them down as it pertains to reads and things of that nature. But as they get going and they start getting the reps that they need to feel comfortable, when you get to this time of spring ball, you start to see things clicking and going well in terms of their reads and reactions. So I believe Fernando's done quite well up to this point. Wilson, the Old Dominion kid that came in as well. And then, of course, Alberto has been in the system for the year, and he may be the most experienced quarterback they have when it comes to what they like to do. But Fernando, from my understanding, has done quite well. He's starting to really understand the offense. If you had a chance to listen to his interview a couple weeks ago when he had the opportunity to speak after practice, you can see why they're high on him. And I've got some things coming down on about Fernando, breaking down some of his tape right now, and we'll talk about him and my take on how Indiana may utilize him this season. But for all practical purposes, right now everything's well. And another question coming in: what's the status of Tyler Cherry? Haven't heard about for a while. Well, good question as well. And then Kyler, I'll give you a chance to chime in on this, but Tyler Cherry is not going to be available for this season. As far as I know, he had a knee injury, a non-contact knee injury, like Tyler Morris did, the week of the Notre Dame game in the college football playoffs, and had to have knee surgery, and he will not be ready. So they moved him to a non-roster role as a student coach because they did not want to utilize a roster spot because it had been a wasted roster spot. So he is right now labeled as a student assistant, and we'll have to see how he progresses through the year and whether or not he's able to get back in the saddle and get going. I know it was a huge blow, not only to the kid, but as well as the coaching staff there, because they have been very high on him heading into this year. But it's an unfortunate situation that he had to go through, and they lose him for another full season. And again, that puts him behind the eight ball when it comes to achieving getting a spot in the lineup at the quarterback spot, because repetition is vital at that position. Kyler, you got anything to expand upon about quarterbacks in general or Tyler Cherry in general?
Yeah, with Tyler Cherry, you may know the answer to this. So it's not technically a red shirt, is it?
Right.
Okay.
Well,
So
I don't think it's going to, they may give him what they call medical red shirt, but I'm sure they'll get that fifth year, that he'll have that fifth year. The problem is he redshirted this year, so now he's hurt. So it all depends on how they interpret that. And I know the NCAA was trying to get rid of the medical redshirt and guys getting 6 years or 7 years of eligibility, that they're just going to say everybody gets 5 years of eligibility and that's it, but we'll see how that all transpires when the new rules come out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that'll be interesting. So it does suck because we all know how talented Tyler Cherry is based off what we've seen at the high school level. He was a star here in the state of Indiana. So as far as the quarterback situation, I thought you kind of nailed it on all topics there with that. But Mendoza, he's going to come in, got to fill in big shoes. When it comes to Curtis Rourke, and I think they went out and got the right guy to do so. Another high character guy, another smart quarterback, high IQ quarterback that can do a lot on the field. Had a really stellar year last year, and just been a guy that's just got consistently better throughout his college career. So I think he'll come in and he'll do some good things. But there is a learning curve. With any new guy that comes in, new quarterbacks that come in and whatnot. So I think right now you want to see these guys in live action, and you'll get that to a certain extent at the spring games. So it'll be interesting to see how to play out, but I like the guys that they got, especially with Mendoza.
Yeah, absolutely. John said with Lindino, Nodake, boy, my eyesight's are bad. The Pepe brothers and the two they are bringing in, we look pretty loaded at the edge. Well, I don't think the edge is too bad to start off with who they've got, like you said. And one thing that's important about defense is if you got to have really good edge players because they set that edge in terms of keeping things to the inside. And you got to have guys that are quick. You have to have guys that have pretty good strength and quickness to go with it. And like you said, I think they'll have plenty to choose from as it pertains to those two things, sides of the ball, the stud backer position and what they label as the defensive end. Kamara, we talked about already moving over to stud. So I don't think that's going to be any concern for the defensive staff when it comes to what they've got in their back pocket as it pertains to players. Again, it comes to experience, repetition. Some guys are ready physically, some guys are not. And that will be the deciding factor, especially with some of the young guys, and whether they're ready to go or not in that regard. I don't know if you we talked a little bit prior to today about this House NCAA settlement that's still ongoing. There's not been a rubber stamp as yet, and how that all is going to go. We do know that what schools are operating on is that this first year with the broadcast money and such is going to be about $20.5 million coming back to the athletic department for distribution. How they break that up, from what I'm understanding, it's going to go like 75 to 80% of that will go to football, and then the other 10% will go to basketball, both men's and women. Now, that's purely rumor, hypotheticals in terms of how that's going to go. We don't know all the particulars with that because of not only that, but then you got the NIL scenario coming in and stuff like that. So I think they need to get this settled. I do think there's a lot of questions that need to still be answered as it pertains to how they're going to police this distribution of money and how they're going to break it out. Are they just going to give everybody an equal pay? Because I figured out at 105, I think each guy would get like $140K if they did it, just giving everybody a split cut, which I'm thinking to myself, $140K, that's pretty good if I'm on a roster spot.
Right?
I mean, can you imagine? These guys are making six figures just because whatever. And I thought to myself, man, that's crazy. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that's a lot of money for that aspect. And in that regard. So we'll see how that all plays out with that in NIL. But I don't know, did you see this article that was on 3 today as well? Again, Remember, get your subscription because there's a lot of information up. $1 first month, 50% off for the year at thehoosier.com. But Greg Stanke, who's the SEC commissioner, has been asking or begging Congress to get involved in all this. And when you ask that type of stuff, you're going to get guys involved. But a bill was introduced to basically have a new sports association, the American of College Sports Association. It would have a commissioner that would be appointed by the president, and it would serve for 4 years. The ACSA would be the governing body. They would redo, I guess, the conferences and stuff in terms of geographical footprint in terms of that stuff. So it's an interesting article if you get a chance to go read it and stuff. One thing that I thought was funny is it cap coaches' salaries at 10 times the full cost of attendance. So I thought that was an interesting one. It would distribute the NIL funds and broadcasting money equally to all student athletes. And it's just an interesting article because if it does go through and the NCAA does get booted as the governing body, it could throw a monkey wrench in this real quick. But I don't know. Did you see that?
I didn't see it, but I've been keeping up with the NCAA settlement and stuff. Obviously, it's pretty interesting. The past few years with this NIL and all that stuff, I guess you could say it's gotten a little bit out of control or whatnot. But as a guy that, I went to college and I was best friends with a lot of the Indiana State basketball team. And, at the time, those guys didn't have those opportunities, right? And
No.
they didn't have NILs and everything. And this was in 2019. I graduated. So 4 years prior to that, they went through none of this, right? And they didn't, make a dime off their name or anything like that. So to me, I like the NIL stuff. I like the players being able to go out there and, make money off of their name and stuff. But I do understand, from a recruiting standpoint and how crazy it's gotten with these salaries and what schools are offering certain players and things like that from both football and basketball. It has kind of gotten a little bit crazy. So with the settlement and stuff, there's probably a lot of people that a lot of fans of college athletics that are probably, really want this to kind of, happen fast, and they wanted to get it, cleared up right away because they want an even playing field. These things like this, I feel like you never get something settled quickly. And I think that this is going to be extended for as long as it can. So one interesting thing I did see, a lot of the college athletes, are kind of spearheading this in a lot of ways, but I saw that Olivia Dunn, I think that's who it was. I saw that where she was like, she didn't want to have an even playing field when it comes to that because she values, she thinks that there's players out there, there's student athletes out there that like herself. I think she's the highest paid college athlete right now on the women's side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her value, she in her defense is like, my value's a lot more valuable. I guess you could say my name's a lot more valuable than some of these other women, some of these other student athletes or whatnot. So it's interesting to see because I think it's pretty divided in a lot of sense with it and stuff. But the rules that they have proposed with these things, it is pretty even and stuff, and it will be interesting to see if the NCAA kind of goes away a little bit. I know you mentioned about there's the guy that's kind of spearheading a different type of college environment or whatever and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see, is there a possibility that we live in a world where there's no Big Ten, there's no SEC? It's kind of scary to think about, but also kind of intriguing at the same time. So it's interesting stuff. I don't think that they'll have this settled anytime soon. I think it's going to keep getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And then finally something will finally break, and there's going to be a nice I guess you could say a nice agreement, when this is all said and done.
Well, as far as the young lady that's basically talking about NIL, because it goes essentially how many followers you got. There's an algorithm they use in terms of value and things of that nature. So some of these guys can make, pretty good money because they've got a following that they can speak to and they can and be endorsed by. I mean, when a college basketball student manager makes $100,000 because of his NIL, you can see right then and there what he got. And then there was a kid at Ohio State that was a walk-on that, because of his following and what he did on different social media sites, he was getting all types of endorsements and paid. And I think he was making pretty good money, well over the $100,000 mark as well. So that's the interesting fact. The Hoosier Connect does a great job because that's the one that handles the NIL stuff. And I know they do a pretty good job with all of that. So it's an intriguing thing. I do believe that they do get it settled and will have the parameters or the guardrails. And I know the Big Ten, I think the SEC are hiring Deloitte as a clearinghouse for NIL for anything over $600 to go through some type of rigorous vetting on whether or not somebody's worth the amount of money that they're supposedly getting paid. And in a capitalist society, it's your worth is whatever, whoever's willing to pay it. There's no in that regard, but it'll be interesting if we see what the salary cap is and how that all's handled, but it's getting a little messy. I don't like it. The one thing I will say the ones that I'm scared about or worried about are the non-revenue sports at any institution, because there's a high probability you're going to see a lot of schools that will end up dropping some of their non-revenue sports because they can no longer support their budgets because of a lot of different things. That's what I'm fearful of, because that would be the travesty. And I know there's some people trying to file injunctions for that very reason, especially like roster sizes and things of that nature, because if you're in a sport that doesn't have a lot of roster spots and you have a bad year, you may find yourself cut. And all of a sudden that's, going out with everything. But it is what it is right there. So a couple more questions here before we get going. Jason, I'll come back to the one about Coach DeVries and that Kyler can probably answer for sure. I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit more if I can. Maybe not. There we go. Any chance our pre-conference opponents get more challenging in the future? Tired of guys like Feinbaum trashing our schedule. Tyler, these schedules are made way in advance. I mean, anywhere from 4 to 6 years in advance. Now, whoever that, Scott Dolson gets to come in the non-conference arena is kind of a wait and see. I know Notre Dame is on a non-conference schedule here in 2030, I believe. But for now, because they don't have any type of scrimmages and stuff, that's why you see some of these lower level teams coming in the Big Ten. It's a big payday for them, number one. But nowadays, no matter who you bring in, if you don't play well, you're going to get beat, especially if it's a top tiered type of, group of 5 opponent coming in your back door, because we've seen it happen every year where somebody gets beat by one of those teams that you're paying $1 million plus to come in. And it's not for them to come in and beat you in your own backyard. It's for you to come in and get a payday and go home. I remember one year when I was coaching at Ball State, we didn't get any of the money that our AD pimped us out to different schools to play, because that money went back to fund the budgets mostly of non-revenue sports at Ball State at the time. But we played one year. We played open with Florida and Kansas State back to back. Kansas State was picked to be national champion that year. They throttled us out in Kansas. We actually played Florida pretty tough. Steve Spurrier was coaching then. He wasn't too happy with his Gators that night. He punted on third down because he was so pissed with the offense that he says, "Screw it, we'll just punt it away because we stink." So, the guys like Feinbaum, he's a joke. I mean, look at Alabama and who they bring in on the 8th game of the week. Then they play Gardner and Webb, or something like that. Their schedules ain't any better. And it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out in the future, especially with the college playoffs and stuff, because you may start seeing a better conference schedule, a pre-conference schedule in the future with all that. Now, Jason has a last question here, Kyler, then we can get out of Dodge, but he wanted to know what the take on Coach is so far from your perspective.
Yeah, he's ball coach, and that's I know people have used that kind of phrasing to describe who Coach DeVries is, but the guy's a workhorse. Man, I've already seen him out. I was covering the state finals a few weeks ago. He was out there, watching guys, not watching anybody in particular, just out there to watch basketball and see what the state of Indiana is about when it comes to the high school level and stuff. He was out and about watching Trent Sisley, who's coming in next year over at Hamilton Southeastern for the Chipotle Nationals and stuff. But I like Darren DeVries a lot. I think he is the right guy to kind of get Indiana basketball back on that level. Obviously it's been a rough kind of last 8-9 years, with that program, trying to get back at a consistent level. But, DeVries is a very confident coach. He's similar to Coach Signetti in a lot of ways. Probably not as entertaining as what Signetti is in a lot of things. So, but DeVries is a guy that he trusts his system. He trusts the guys that he brings in, and he's going to bring in the right guys to run his system. And I think that's the big thing. He's not just going to go out there and get the 5-star player just because it's a sexy name or anything like that. It'd be cool to have on your roster. No, he's going to go out there and get guys that make sense. If it is a 5-star player, if it is a 3-star player, he's going to go out and get those guys with that. But I like the things that he's doing right now. I know it's a little quiet when it comes to the transfer portal right now with them. I think he's a guy that's kind of working in silence in a lot of ways, which is, I think a good thing in a lot of ways. So he's going to keep it in-house. And right now he's still trying to finalize his staff. And, with Drew Adams coming in, Nick Norton, those are guys that have already pretty much confirmed that they're going to be a part of that staff. And obviously I think he's done a good job so far with the guys that he's got in. So, I don't see any reason why, if DeVries gets the right guys for his system. Obviously, you got the fan support. Hopefully Hoosier Nation's probably going to be pretty ecstatic. You see what this new regime is going to look like and stuff. I don't see any reason why Indiana can't be at least a competitive team this year. The goal, this first year, make the NCAA tournament and just see what happens. But I really like Coach DeVries a lot. I think he's he's a class act. He's an extremely nice guy, and he's a guy that's he knows the system, and he's gonna play the right guys, and he's gonna get the right guys to run his system and run it in a successful way.
Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight, Kyler, being part of the quote unquote first broadcast on the Hoosier.com. Thank you so much. Definitely we'll talk again and get you back on it during the season and talk some more ball as we get going here. But I appreciate you coming on. And again, remember, you can catch Kyler and all his stuff right on the Hoosier.com. Always active there, Kyler. Again, thanks a lot, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Coach. Hopefully we'll do this again, and exciting things to come. Thanks for being a part of the team.
All right, partner. Have a good weekend. We'll catch you later. Kyler,
you too.
Staley from the Hoosier.com right here on the Hoosier Football Tailgate. Appreciate him being a part of tonight's show as well. Remember, the discount on the subscription over there at the Hoosier.com as well as on 3 is $1 for your first month and then 50% off for the remainder of that first year. You can't beat it for all the content you get day in, day out. There's always something there to read or watch on thehoosier.com. And I appreciate you guys coming on this evening and being a part of the show. And remember, each and every week, Thursday in the off season, we'll have a show for you and some other tidbits like the RPO analysis that will be going up here shortly, as well as other things as we get going here. And in season will be twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, Mondays being a recap of Saturday's game, and then Thursdays being a preview of the IU's next opponent for Saturday. But right now, again, I appreciate you coming and being a part of this broadcast on thehoosier.com. I'm excited to be a part of a great group of guys and also Indiana Hoosier fans like you showing up here tonight. Catch you again next week. Will probably be Wednesday as a preview for the spring game next Thursday. So there will be no show on Thursday, but stay tuned to my Twitter feeds where you can follow me at Hoosier Tailgate or at Coach Griff 55 for any updates on the show next week, as well as other information coming up in the future as it looks at recruiting and such. So again, thank you for joining me here this evening. Hope to see all of you at the spring game next Thursday in Memorial Stadium, 8 o'clock. If you get a chance and you see me walking around, by all means, come up and give me a tap on the shoulder and introduce yourself. But for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. This has been the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com.